Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Where Data Meets Business webinar. I am Sonia Ketkar. I am a data product consultant. I help individuals and businesses apply data-driven approaches to achieve business goals. In addition to organizing webinars on super interesting topics like this one, I also write a newsletter called databusiness.substack.com. And I have a podcast, which is called Where Data Meets Business, in which I interview expert professionals from corporate America as well as startups who work in the data and product spaces. So check it out on Spotify and, of course, share and subscribe if you like it. If you're already subscribed to our newsletter, this webinar is actually a follow-up workshop or session to an article with the title How to Design for Data-Heavy Products, which was written a few weeks ago by design consultant Anyi Sun, who is here with us today. Anyi, welcome. Super excited to have you here talking about this very relevant topic.
Hi, Sonia. Nice to be here.
So before we jump in, just a few housekeeping points for anyone who is new to StreamYard, which is the platform that we're using. We want to hear your comments and your questions. So if you look at the top right-hand side of your screen, you will see a comment spot box. If you just click it, it opens up a little window in which you can type in your questions and so on. We will take those questions midway, if they're urgent, or then we have time dedicated towards the end of this session for just Q&A. So with that said, I am going to hand it over to Ani, and we are on our way.
Oh, thank you. Sonia, would you mind start presenting the
Yes,
slide?
let me add the
Yeah.
presentation to the stage. Okay, here we go.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Anyi. Like Sonia said, if you have any comment and question at any time during this workshop presentation, just feel free to leave it in the comment section. We will address it in the middle of this workshop as well as at the end. And thank you so much for being here. My name is Anyi. I'm based in New York City. I am the co-founder of Koi Studios. We are a digital product design studio, and we try to solve real problems today and create a kinder tomorrow. Personally, I've been doing user experience design or product design for 10 years now. I know I look young. I've had the honor to design for millions of users. I am also an adjunct professor at New York University, teaching undergraduate students design. And I have a master's degree in psychology. And today we are actually going to dive a little bit deeper into the psychology of data and perceiving data. So both at Koi Studios, the design studio that I founded, and previously I've worked with a lot of big corporations or organizations like Deloitte, MLB, NHL. We've also worked a ton with startup at Koi Studios to help them bring their product from 0 to 1. And we have a slight focus on B2B products. And personally, I've worked on so many B2B products, and all of these products, they have one common theme. They have so much data. And so I accumulated a lot of experience. I reflected on these experience, and I want to share with you the principles I have for designing for data-heavy products. So let's first talk about data-heavy products. How do I define those in this workshop? So I think of data-heavy products as digital platforms that deliver value to its users by collecting, processing, and displaying a large volume of data. And whether you are a person creating or building or designing these products, or you are the users of these products, we've encountered so many of these in our daily life. So for example, you may have something, you may not use Salesforce directly, but you probably use a product that has this kind of dashboard where it calls out key metrics and some rankings and some to-do list on the dashboard. You may see products with a lot of cool and really good looking visualizations. And this is really common for data heavy products. Another super common thing is tables. So just a big old table on a page with a lot of columns. I'm sure you've encountered those. And even when we think about data-heavy products, the data doesn't have to be presented in a table. Jira, for example, it has a lot of data on the board, but because of the way that it's presented, it doesn't kind of fall into the traditional framework, or when you first think about data heavy products, you probably wouldn't think about this feature or on Jira as a data heavy feature, but it is. Um, of course, recently with all the AI products, it's pulling all the data, displaying it. So Perplexity, for example, is looking at more than 10 sources to pull out the best water bottle for me. Again, it's displaying a lot of data, some of them imagery, some of them are text, some of them are numeric, and it's all displaying on the screen. Apple Health, another example, so coming into the consumer lens a little bit, it shows you a lot of information about yourself, about your steps. Even airline apps, it has data about flights, different time, different pricing tiers, different upgrades you can make. So as I was looking through all these examples, as you can see, there were so many examples. I realized it's almost like anything and everything has a stats page. So even the Dyson app has a data visualization of the air quality. Reddit, you can see insights of your post. How many people viewed it? When did they view it? How many people shared it? Instagram, similarly, you can see stats of your posts. You can even change the time frame that you want to look at. Even the Target app has this on this personal profile page has this stats being displayed about how much money you're saving and how many I don't know how many coupons you're using, and I don't even understand like how many community you're supporting. I don't even know that is a feature for the Target app. So looking across all these different products, I want to run a quick exercise and just think about what are the good and bad characteristics when it comes to data heavy products. So a quick exercise here. I want you to do either or. So you can think of a data heavy product, whether it's something you use at work or something you use in your daily life that you really enjoy using. What does it work? Why does it work so well for you? Or you can think of a data heavy product or feature that you really struggle to use. What makes it challenging? And for everybody out there, feel free to leave any comments that you may have, like anything that comes to your mind. You can do either of these or both of these. But I'm curious, Sonia, not to put you on the spot. Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah, I was actually, I just posted the Spotify link to the podcast, and I was just thinking, Spotify can get a bit cluttered sometimes because, there's too much music and so I do have trouble sometimes just finding information. It's not necessarily statistics, but it's,
Yeah,
just information on what I'm looking for. There's just too much. And yeah, so that's one example that comes to mind.
yeah,
And
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Spotify for sure. Again, it's not like the traditional like data heavy product. When we say data heavy product, you think about numbers. But Spotify, it has a lot of information on the songs, the artists, podcasts, what the genre, what kind of uh, what kind of music it is, and like is it upbeat, is it sad? And it's just so many things to display on the page.
Yeah, for sure. And we have a comment here from Andrea, which is she likes mixed panel over Google Analytics with a clean UI.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I think
uh,
there are so many like analytics products out there. It's a very tough competition, and sometimes people really just like one product over the other because the UI is cleaner and easier to use.
For sure. Here's another comment from one of our guests. Customization makes it challenging if there are too many filters.
Yeah, like they're expecting you to do too much and present you a lot of data that you kind of have to figure out how to dice and cut it.
Yes. And I have one more here, and then we can move on about Substack. Oh, I use Substack.
Yeah,
I yeah,
I'm curious what it looks like because I personally don't use Substack, and it's great to hear that it's really useful. And I know a lot of people are using Substack these days.
yeah. Okay, last one. I know I said last one, but just one more very interesting one came up using about the Strava app, which is really popular for among runners and athletes.
Yeah, I know Strava, but I've never used Garmin, and I'm curious to compare them too.
Yeah. Okay. Moving. We can move on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I think just I did kind of like a scan of products that I like and dislike. The ones I like, some of the characters that I wrote down, it tells me something interesting and important. And I think interesting is a keyword here because sometimes I will look at the data and be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't even know that I wanted to know that, but now that I know, it's interesting. Um, and I can always find the data pretty quickly. It helps me make decisions. I can easily get into the weeds if I really want to, and it's pleasing to the eye. And I don't think that's something to overlook because when it's pleasing to the eye, users are more engaged. For those I don't really, for the products that I don't really like, it tells me things that are irrelevant. It takes me a long time to find what I need. I thought it helped me make decisions when I started using the data and started like going to that page, but it really didn't really help me. There's a learning curve to dive deeper into the data, and it burns my eyes sometimes to look at all the data and the visualizations. So I really want to dive deeper in this one. It helps me make decisions. Or I thought it helped me make decisions because a lot of times when we put forth data heavy products and features, our goal is to help users make informed decisions. And I now want to dive into information overload. A lot of times when users can't make decisions based on the data, it's not because there's not enough data. It's because there's way too much data. So Epler and Mangus in 2004, they are two psychologists. They did this very famous, very thorough study in information overload. And they define it as a state where the individual's ability to process information is compromised due to the volume, complexity, or ambiguity of the information encountered, especially under time constraints or cognitive limits. So let's look into these adjectives that they use. Uh, when I think one key thing to point out is information overload goes beyond the volume of data. It can also happen when the data is ambiguous, unstructured, conflicting, rapidly changing, and presented poorly. And I have some examples for you. So first, this is an example of ambiguous data. This, let's imagine this is a metric callout on a homepage for let's say a social media app. You're a creator on a social media app. It says engagement score. Well, it's very ambiguous how they define engagement here. And it's also not very clear what a number 3 means. Is it good? Is it bad? We don't know. It's ambiguous. Unstructured. So this is an example of an unstructured raw transcript. It is really difficult to derive any insights from this raw phone call transcript. And I've also seen this in a lot of in a lot of AI products where it's just spelling out a lot of text and you have to read through everything to kind of get insights from them. Conflicting. I don't know if people have seen this, but I don't know if it's true outside the US, but in the US, sometimes you get, after you go see a doctor, you get a letter telling you how much you owe. But on the letter, it will say, this is not a bill. This is actually the insurance company explaining you how much you will need to pay. But because of the format that it's presenting, it is very confusing at first because it definitely looks like you owe $40 and you're supposed to pay $40 right away. So yeah, conflicting. It takes you a while to understand what's going on. Rapidly changing, and this is actually a dark UX patterns that we see all the time, especially when we book hotels or like anything travel related. You will see that, hurry, 3 rooms left. Um, it's creating the sense that this can change anytime. Like someone may be also looking at this king bedroom and they may book it, and you'll just miss your chance of booking this incredible room. And it also contributes to information overload, kind of clouding your judgment and making you book this immediately. And finally, presented poorly. I think we probably all have had really badly designed boarding pass at one point when we were flying. This is an example. You basically it's basically super hard to find any information besides the seat number. And this boarding pass is going to make a comeback very soon in this talk as well. So I want to dive into, now that I've talked about all the issues with badly designed data layout or features, I now want to dive into talking about how do we actually make good products for data heavy products or features. I'm gonna pause here a little bit just to see if there's any question, and if not, I will move on. Okay. Okay, oh good, I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, you can move on.
Okay, so I will cover 3 principles today. And the first principle, and I really think is most likely the most important one, is assign levels of importance. We want to map out, so for all the data points that we are displaying, we want to map out how important it is for users to see that data. Why? Because we want to drive focus. So for example, on this unfortunate boarding pass, again, it's really hard to look at it and like look for the information that you need. I'm talking about the mental effort that it takes to find the piece of information you need. So for example, if you want to look for boarding time, I don't know if you can see it clearly because of this streaming quality, but it's like it's right here. It's super small, and when you're traveling, you're already stressed. You're not focused. So this is just adding on the cognitive load to stay focused and look for the thing you need. We want to help users make decisions. So again, it's hard to find a boarding time. So when do I need to be at the gate? I don't know. And when everything is important, nothing is important. So all the information here is presented in the same way, again, aside from the seat number. So it's really hard to tell which information should I care about and which one is kind of irrelevant to you, is more for the staff member of the airline. And I think just this flight boarding pass is just such a great example in a bad model for designing for data heavy products. So when I think about levels of importance when it comes to data point, I personally have 4 levels. So the most important level, I call it critical. And for each level, I think about the use cases and the frequency of that specific data point. So for example, for all the critical data, um, when I think about a use case, how will user use that data? The critical data should be, without the data, users won't be able to achieve a critical goal. and users will need to quickly and frequently refer to the data. The next level is important. Users may occasionally need the data to achieve a goal. It is still important for the data to be there, but users won't need to refer to the data as frequently as critical data. The third level is nice to have. The data offers supplementary support to a user goal. I wouldn't say the data is useless. The data can be helpful sometimes, but users will very rarely need to refer to the data. And then no use. Users don't incorporate the data in their workflow at all. Users won't need to refer to the data in terms of frequency. They just don't need it. But a lot of times when we are designing, we will be like, well, should we put this data on the table? And a lot of times the answer would be, well, let's just put it there just in case someone needs to use it. And I think that's really not a good practice because it's implied in that answer that we don't think users actually use it, and we are creating that kind of extra information on the screen, contributing to information overload. So another quick exercise here. On the right, I have a recap of what I just talked about, the 4 different levels of importance. And on the left, I have, coming back to the boarding pass example, just 4 data that may or may not show up on the on a boarding pass, and I want you to map the importance of them. So we're looking at flight number, seat number, booking class, frequent flyer number. So Sonia, how would you map the importance levels for each of these?
Well, I don't know. I'm usually bad at matching things, but let me give it a try. So seat number, of course, is the most important.
Mhm.
So I would say that is, um, flight number, seat number, but those are critical.
Yeah.
Well, the flight number, if you have to get, depending on which stage you are at the airport, some, the flight number is more important at one point at the airport, and the seat number becomes more important as you get closer to the gate. Frequent flyer number, probably not that important, or booking class, really not important.
Mhm.
I don't know if I got that right, but do folks have
Well,
other
yeah.
matches here?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it some time for folks to type down their comments. I also don't think there is an like objective correct answer here, unless any of you work in an airline and you know what's really important and what really is not important.
Yeah, I think maybe you can give us the answer as from your perspective,
Yeah.
because you're right. Like, if depending on where you are in the like you said, there are some caveats here, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing comments coming in. I think a lot of people have similar similar opinions on what's critical, what's important. Um, okay, I'm just gonna review. Yes, I'm just gonna review my personal mapping here, and I can talk a little bit about why. So, totally agree. Flight number and seat number, I think they're critical. Flight number help you identify which flight a passenger you're in, and you can look at board, check the gate number if you're at the right gate, and even for airport workers, it's very important to see too, just so they have a reference. C number critical too. Booking class, I did put it as important. I think it's like between important and nice to have. I actually did search a little bit about why booking class is on the boarding pass. That's because a lot of times airline workers may refer to your booking class to understand should they upgrade you or not. Like, where are you in terms of the priority of upgrade? Um, and the letter kind of indicates that. But I also think maybe there's a case for it to be a nice to have, because maybe if they scan the code on the boarding pass, they will be able to access that information right away. So yeah, I would love to interview an actual airline staff to know whether it's important, nice to have.
Well, I'm
Frequent
really glad
flyer,
I didn't completely fail
yeah.
this test. So,
Yeah,
so
there's no wrong answer though. Um, yeah, frequent flyer number, I put it as no use. I think a few people did too in a comment. You don't really need that on the boarding pass. You're just taking up space, unnecessary space on the boarding pass. So thank you everyone for doing this exercise. And now I'm going to talk about, from the design perspective, how do we visualize these importance? A lot of times when it's critical, I would just say, let's just show it directly above the fold, right in your face. Just show it. Make it very easy for users to find it. If it's important, it definitely shouldn't be. It shouldn't have the same level of importance visually as critical data. You can make it kind of secondary, but also don't hide it. Like, still make it easy to get to. Nice to have data. I put hide it here. What do I mean by hide it? So you can put it on the second page. So like it's maybe one click away. Maybe you need to really like expand that module to be able to see the data, the nice to have data. And no use, you guess it, just don't show it. You don't have to show it. You can always add it back in later if you want to, if there's actually a use case for it. So I'm going to run you through some examples that I'm seeing online on how they execute that levels of importance visually. So this is an example from MailChimp. And just to orient ourselves a little bit, we're looking at a campaign dashboard for this email campaign called Join Us for a 15% discount. And MailChimp, for those who are not familiar, they're an email marketing tool. You can send out emails to your customers, email blasts to your customers about, let's say, a product that you're selling. So this specific email is called Join Us for 15% discount. I'm going to highlight a few areas here. So here you can see the metadata of this email. Who the audience is, like the audience group, what the subject line is, when it's delivered. And then here there are some basic metrics about this email. How many people opened it? How many people clicked on the link inside this email? And then underneath, you see some other data. So for example, clicks per unique opens, total clicks, last clicked, when was it? Abuse reports. I think that's maybe people like reporting your email as spam. And also total opens, like how many people opened it. And probably across, if one single individual opened it multiple times, it will be counted into this total opens. So what are the levels of importance for these data points? So this is what I think. So the metadata information, I do believe they're critical because they are identifying information of a campaign. So imagine you're working at an agency and at a given time you can manage 10, 20 different campaigns. And this Join Us for a 15% discount is probably not enough for you to kind of get a sense of what this campaign is about, just looking at it. So these additional information definitely help. I also do think these high level metrics are critical, and I love that they call them out using this layout to like really just make the number larger, like make me not guess the open count and the click count. Just put it right there. These metrics underneath, I think they're important. They can support some use cases such as, oh, I want to build a report of how this campaign is doing, and I need to show detailed information about it to my manager. I want to see how long lasting this campaign is, and like, are people still clicking on the link inside the campaign. So I may want to check last clicked, which is definitely, it doesn't sound like a common use case to me. Here, I think the total opens, this number 6, it is a clickable link. And when you click into it, you get to see the specific details of who opened it and when. I think it's nice to have like that level of the granularity of who and when. It's nice to have, but you don't have to show it right here. So I love that they put it right inside. They put it in a different page so that you have to click into it to get to it, so that you're not crowding this page. I guess like one thing that I would be curious about was if I had a conversation with their designer, like their rationale behind putting this critical information in the middle and having these, I would say maybe slightly less critical information on top. I would really want to discuss, hey, have you thought about like other layouts, maybe putting these top level metrics on top and moving these metadata information to just underneath the join us for a 15% discount. But overall, I really love how they executed on this page, and I hope this is a good example of levels of importance and how you visualize them on the screen. So onto a more consumer example. So we're looking at the weather app on iPhone. I'm highlighting a few areas here again. So we have this homepage for the weather app where the middle section is telling you a degree, temperature, and the weather by time. So 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Underneath it, you can see by date. So today, Monday, Tuesday. And if you scroll down a little bit, you get to see the UV, like details like UV index for today, or like when the sun will set today. And then if you click into the UV index box, you get to another page showing you a detail of the UV index. So like at 12 o'clock, this is how strong the UV light will be. The UV index will be. At 6 p.m., this is how weak it will be. So looking at the levels of importance, again, I think this is a really great example. The critical ones are shown first on top. So, and it's less scrolling. You open an app, you can see those right away. The UV index, it is important, but maybe not everybody cares about it, or not everybody cares about it all the time. So it is 1 or 2 scroll away when you go down. And as a learned behavior, if you've seen this before, you know next time when you use the weather app, you know how to check for the UV index. The nice to have for the graph, I don't think everybody cares about UV index that much to see a detailed breakdown hour by hour what the index is, but maybe some people really care about it and really need that information. And let's say for medical reasons, then that is a really helpful information. But again, it is a few scrolls and a click away, which is a good way to kind of segment the information, especially on the small screen, such as a mobile phone. The level of the differentiation between levels of importance is even more important, even more critical for when you're designing for mobile. Okay, going to principle 2. And if you have any question, again, feel free to just drop it in the comment section. Principle 2, I want to talk about showing versus telling. So I think about when we display data, I think about, are we showing the data? Are we telling the data? So what I mean by showing is we let the data speak for itself. We are not really adding any additional explanation of the insights and just showing the data. Whereas telling is we are explaining the insights to the users. Instead of showing them the raw information, we kind of package up the insights and tell them what it is. I have an example here for you here, and I have this showing and telling meter at the bottom to show you whether I think this kind of visualization or this kind of data display is showing the users or telling the users. So imagine you are building this student performance dashboard. On the dashboard, you can see a student's test score, their class participation, and the absent days per semester. So the showing and telling meter, right now we're completely in the showing territory. So average test score, student A's performance, 82. Great. Class participation, it's the 3. Let's just say the teacher gave the score here. 3 means moderately active, and the student was absent 5 days this semester. So we're just showing the data. You can't really understand what's going on with this student just by seeing this data because there's no context. Is the average test score of 82 good? Is a moderately active participation score good? How many days are students typically absent from a semester? We have no idea. So moving the meter a little bit to telling, we can give a class average, which will give you more context over students A's performance. So an average score of 75, an average test score of 82 from student A is actually really good, considering that the class average is 75. Similarly, for class participation, 3 is a class average, and the 5 days absence per semester, again, it's below average. So it's telling you more insights of this student. You don't have to keep it as a text. You can also visualize it some way using, bar chart, for example. Exactly the same data here, but it's just showing you in a different way. I didn't really move the showing and telling meter right here because it's not really telling you anything extra than what the text did in the previous slide. It's just a different way of displaying the data. Now we are kind of in the middle. We're both showing and telling. So instead of showing you, hey, the class average is 75, we're directly telling you that an average test score of 82 of student A is actually excellent. Moderately active, we give it a number 3. And in the star rating form, this is in the middle. It's not great, it's not bad. And absence days per semester, I put this a check icon and then a normal. It's telling you that, hey, this is within the normal range. Don't worry about it. So we are definitely going away from showing raw data and going towards giving you some insights directly. Another way to even be more telling is instead of showing the showing the meter of excellent, average, below average, we're just going to tell you it's excellent, the test score. A class participation score of 3 is moderate. Absent days, 5 days, it's excellent. So you're telling the insights a little bit more. If we move the meter a little bit more into telling, we can even remove the numbers directly. If you, let's say, if the users really just don't care about the exact number of days that student A is absent, just tell them it's excellent. And that maybe will just give them a peace of mind instead of telling them details that they don't need. However, if your users really do want to see how many days student A was absent, let's say the teacher who's directly responsible for student A and really want to know the days, then this is not a good design for them. Completely towards telling. Instead of showing any data visualization, we're just going to tell you in sentences, in bullet points. Student A is strong in both academics and attendance. but they could be encouraged to participate more in class activities. So maybe that's something that the teacher would just write to parents directly, because I don't think the parents are expecting to see any, I don't know, any like fancy visualization, data visualization of students' A's performance. So when should you show or tell? So it really depends. So in this example, this is on the right. This is the same example as I showed you before, but just a different layout. This is the most the showing example here. If you're just displaying the raw data, obviously it's really great for tables. Like you don't need anything extra. Maybe you can have like a little parenthesis after average test score of 82, showing maybe it's like 5% with an up arrow to show that it's 5% above class average. But really, just showing the raw data is enough. So in this example, where we are both showing and telling, it's really good if you need to provide insights at a glance, but without it should say without sacrificing all the details. So you're still telling them that the average test score is 82, but it's excellent. You're still telling them that the absent days per semester is normal, but here it's 5 days. In this example, we are telling more. It's good for when users only just want direct insights, just give it to them. And in this example, is good for when users only just expect a straight answer, like don't show me the numbers, I just want to know how they did. That's it. So there's definitely no, I don't think there is an easy flow chart in thinking about, oh, now this is the scenario where I need to show, or this is the scenario where I need to tell. And actually, a lot of times they are not mutually exclusive. Like sometimes you do need to be both showing and telling. And I'm just going to go back to this slide. I really do like this this presentation of data right here, where it is engaging in a way that it is telling you insights, but in a visually interesting way. But it's also displaying the actual raw data so that it's building credibility and giving transparency. And a lot of times when we design for data heavy products, we need to be able to do both of those. So whether you want to lean towards showing versus telling, you can ask yourself, should the emphasis be on full data visibility, or should we focus on delivering interpreted insights to the users? And I think that will guide you into whether you want to show or tell. And I actually do have like a little cheat sheet for the scenarios that are better for showing and scenarios that are better for telling. I will have a link to download this deck at the end of the slide, at the end of the talk, and you can use that link to grab the cheat sheet too. And the final principle is catering to different needs. So we want to provide experience for different experiences for different types of personas or user types. So in the example of a student dashboard, academic performance dashboard, the teacher will probably want a pretty different view than the principal. So the teacher will want to see detailed records of students, see class level trends, whereas the principal, they're not really that interested in diving into specific classes. They more want to see high level trends. And that's why their experience should be different, should look different. And I will argue that may be the case for a lot of B2B products out there. But I don't have the time, resources, buy-in to create a dashboard for everyone. Very, very valid. And a lot of times we don't. I do think there are some lower effort way of offering customization though. So an example would be view setting. So in Gmail, you can set the display density into default, comfortable, compact, which really allow users to decide on whether what works best for them based on how they process information. You can change the layout you can allow users to change layout. So whether they want to see a grid view of a, let's say, a folder of files, or do they want to see a list view? Another example is when we are designing tables. You may think this is like super basic, but you are offering a way of customization. So filtering, you help users filter to see the information, only the information they need. Sorting, you allow them to find the data that they are looking for and sort the data in terms of their levels of how they assign levels of importance. You can you can allow them to edit columns, so they don't have to look at columns that do not mean anything to them. So there was a comment before about the different customizations making it like kind of difficult to use, because it's like there's too many options for you to create that optimal view for yourself. I really like the option of saving as a custom report. So anytime you configure a table some way, or you want to you're building a report for yourself, and you did a lot of things to filter, sort, edit the columns that you need, give an option for people to save it so that they can use it in the future and they don't have to redo everything again. The favorites, or like hoarding, bookmarking, whatever it's called, it's also super helpful to allow users to quickly find the data that they need. You can also have a contained scope customization. So for example, you can have just like 2 modules on the dashboard where you allow users to pick what they want to see there. Maybe you have 5 different visualizations that you can show, and you can allow users to pick which 2 are the most important to them. And of course, I would definitely recommend you to pre-select that, like make a very educated guess for them when they are new to your product, so that you're showing them relevant information to them at the get-go, while giving them the ability, as they get comfortable with the product, to customize it furthermore. So just to recap, I covered 3 principles: assign levels of importance, showing versus telling, and catering to different needs. Assigning levels of importance, so I map data into these different levels: critical, important, nice to have, extra or no use, and then visualize them accordingly. Showing versus telling, showing means letting the data explain itself. Telling means explaining the insights directly. And a lot of times, remember, it's important to have both. Principle 3, cater to different needs. Customization can come in different shapes and forms, and I know it's not always feasible to really do personalization and customization to the point that you want to, but there are lower hanging fruits that you can tackle to really help out users to get the insights they need. And that's it from me. As I mentioned earlier, you can download this deck. There's also this bonus content for showing and telling cheat sheet on which one you may want to lean towards. I have a link here. I also have a QR code. I hope you can scan it. I think it may be covered by a logo. But yeah, you can go on this link and download the deck.
Yeah, so for I think it might be covered by the logo. So let's try a different format just for a second. Oh,
Let's do
nope,
it.
nope,
It's okay.
it's not working. Well, we just for everyone, we are going to post this video on YouTube as well, on our YouTube channel, where Data Meets Business, and you'll get an email linking it to that. So you can, of course, grab it from there as well. That should be up tomorrow, so pretty quickly. All right, so I'm going to remove this now from the screen. But yeah, so do we have any questions? I think that was super useful, that just the sort of visualization. I loved the showing versus telling piece of it, because that's where a lot of at least I've been caught before. And I mentioned this in the some of the sort of event postings about this, that um even if you don't work directly in product, but you work in data roles and you're doing data heavy work and you have to make presentations, a lot of the insights that you offered, I think, can be applicable to slides and presentations as well, like you were showing on the slides in this session. So I thought that was super helpful as well, because I do a lot of that. I do a lot of presenting and I presenting data, and sometimes it just gets, you just don't know how to kind of weed out the important information and how to present it. So I think this was really helpful in kind of conveying that.
Oh, yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Glad to hear it's helpful. I think the showing and telling part was my favorite part of the presentation to me because I get to make up the example and like really think about, well, what are some of the ways to show more? What are some of the ways to tell more?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question that I'm going to pull up on the screen here, which is, how would you recommend planning for evolving user needs for dashboards and tooling?
I think so quick question regarding categorization. I would love to understand more about um how dashboard and tooling planning is related to categorization. But I do think with regards to dashboards, when I worked on a product, we had regular user testings, and I would try to always just sneak in a question and show the user the dashboard really quickly and ask them, "Hey, are you using the data? Like, how are you incorporating the key metrics in your workflow?" As a way to see if it is something that's still useful to them. And I think a lot of time the thing with dashboards is people we when we design it at first we are just guessing what would be helpful to users, and over time you get a better sense of what's useful versus what's not.
Yeah, good point. I mean, I think that also goes back to having conversations with the users or customers or so on as well, right? Which is
Mhm.
to kind of keep finessing the design. Okay, another question here. What are some of the research questions you might ask to validate that your data heavy products are intuitive?
I think one question I would add, like I would maybe ask them to describe their work, like what kind of goal they want to achieve using the product, and then walk me through how they would do that on the application. And instead of asking questions directly, I would just observe whether they are able to find it and like what kind of challenges or struggles they face when they're doing that.
Great. And a question that I love because it's related to AI, which is infiltrated our lives in every way possible. So, how do you think AI is changing how we design for complex data?
I think there are, so one thing that I'm noticing while using ChatGPT is their answers are becoming more structured. So they have others. I think every answer is in bullet points if it's like a long form answers. And I think that's really helpful in terms of like interpreting or understanding what it's saying. So just in terms of displaying text, I think with AI people are reading more and it's getting more important to uh, be able to show the difference, the level of importance visually for strings for texts. um, I think that there are also a lot of AI chat interfaces out there. So now we need to think about, well, if this dashboard is in a form of a chat interface, so instead of showing users everything, what if it shows users something and then let users ask questions? And how do we display the data in a chat interface? And I think that's a pretty new territory that all the designers are still figuring out.
Got it. And kind of on that note, like, do you think there are ways to actually use AI to make this process faster? Just yeah, you have to have some of it. You have to have the conversations. You have to have the experimentation and the testing and so on. But what are your thoughts on how AI can kind of not just change, but actually maybe speed things up, because there are more products that are available out there today, including AI products.
Yeah, I think the levels of importance part is definitely helpful. So I personally use ChatGPT to tell me what's important on the boarding pass to an airline staff member because I don't have that kind of knowledge. And I think that knowledge may be available on the internet somewhere. And that was really helpful to just get, like, may not be 100% correct, but I at least got to 80% correct without talking to anyone yet.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we if there are any more questions, last few seconds to add them here. But I think this was a really great discussion. I learned a lot, and as I said, it's got so many. It got me thinking about all the different ways in which one can represent information, which is super useful coming from an expert, of course. And yeah, thank you so much for this, Ani. Thank you for walking us through this, and to our audience, thank you so much for joining. And as I mentioned before, you can find more of this on our YouTube channel, which is Where Data Meets Business. And I will send out an email tomorrow with all the links that you need to kind of catch up if you missed certain parts of this as well. So thanks everyone again, and have a really good evening or morning wherever you are in the world. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.